YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for Mighty Morphin issue 15. And man, was this a great issue. I thought issue 14 was really strong because it largely focused on character stuff. And then issue 14 of Power Rangers was also a strong issue because it had some good action. And I felt like this issue was right in between. It was like the perfect marriage between some really good action to keep the sort of momentum of the war going, wrapped up in some nice character stuff. Let's talk about Zordon and Zed first. There was some really good stuff with them. We kind of start on a flashback like we usually do, although last week was a little bit different, I think. But we have a flashback of when Zordon and his friends first encountered, like, Zed. Like, obviously he met Zofran before, but he didn't know he was Zed. So he first encountered Zed, and we discover, you know, that Zed was attacking planets that Eltar had already saved, and it was their first encounter, and then that kind of all of a sudden ties into their encounter now, because when we last left off, he just encountered Zed on the moon, and we see them fighting, and they basically fight throughout the whole issue, and they're sort of monologuing throughout it. He's got me monologuing! But basically it kind of goes into their relationship and Zed's motivations, and basically Zed lays out to Zordon that he believes that Zordon effectively wanted his job. He went to Jan behind his back and he's like, I want the branch. And he had to do his laundry. He thinks that Zordon wanted to take his job and like set him up and set up the Zeo Crystal to hurt him, and Zordon's trying to make him realize that he wouldn't have done that he didn't even really care about being an Eltarian warrior. He initially did it out of obligation, and that it was Zardis that manipulated him. So it was a really great selection of scenes, and it makes me kind of curious going into this final battle whether he and Zordon might team up briefly to fight Zardis. Like, obviously I don't think Zed's gonna be redeemed or anything, or they're gonna have some sort of permanent alliance, but I could maybe see them fighting side by side. That would be kind of interesting. I definitely want to see the three of them in a room together. I think there would be some really interesting dynamics there. So that's going on. And speaking of Zardis, like amongst all of the fighting that's going on between the Imperials and the Rangers, Grace comes up and she stabs and shatters like the crystal thing that controls the Imperials. And that creates this situation now where the Imperials are free. It's time to conquer Earth, and Zardis no longer controls them. And I'm really excited by that because I think it makes this wild card dynamic going into the final arc of this. And I wanted that kind of from the beginning because as interesting as the Eltarian twist is, and I really like the idea of Eltar being the enemy, I was a little bit disappointed that the Imperials kind of got turned into these lackeys because they kind of were built up as this big destructive threat, and then they got turned into these things that's just being controlled. So I think that's really interesting, and I think it makes them intimidating again, and I'm really interested to see how that works out in the last few issues of this, especially since you will have them going up against not only the Rangers, but Zardis himself. So I'm really happy the way that works, and I also happen to think, with the focus on the Imperials being free, about Drakken, who had made a deal with them, and I almost forgot about Drakken, to be honest, so I get a feeling he'll be coming into play fairly soon, so I'm really interested to see what happens with that. And then, of course, the big thing of the issue actually happens within the battle, because all throughout the episode, I always say that because I'm so used to reviewing episodes, but all throughout it, the Rangers are fighting the Imperials, the megazords and the omegazords, and we get this big new combination, another hybrid combination, as in the battle, the Dragonzord and the Tigerzord merge to make the White Dragonzord. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's a hybrid of the Dragonzord and the Tigerzord, which I feel like is something a lot of people have wanted, or at least thought might happen after this. Probably the complainers are going to be like, oh, it's fan fiction. No, it's just being creatively free from the dogmatic, narrow view of the Sentai. And it's a little bit like fan servicey, like, you know, fan wishy, but I still think it's pretty cool. And it makes sense because, you know, within the context of the show, I believe technically the Dragonzord was still, like, it still existed around the time of the Thunderzords, and I think they even brought him back for the Clone Tommy arc. But we could never use it because of the way footage was, so I like the idea of, obviously we have this new Dragonzord, but I like the idea of being free of the constraints of, like, well, technically these Zords existed at the same time, but we couldn't use them because of footage. And this makes a lot of sense, and I think it was something cool. It's something that they almost kind of had to do. Like, even Matt, when they did it, said, let's give the people what they want, which was good. And I think that it's also kind of a nice possible stepping stone in this little mini arc that Matt and Tommy have been doing. I feel that there maybe could have been more build-up to Tommy trusting Matt that maybe could have led to this, but I feel that there's been a good amount of dialogue addressing the mistrust between Matt and Tommy and the animosity and people trying to get them to work together, that maybe this sort of combination in battle will act as the first stepping stone of them working together more. I don't know. I thought it was cool. They're probably going to be complainers about it, but I thought it was really cool. I really like the design. I really want, like, figures, and whether they're just like action figures or like combinable figures, or maybe even like that Z Megazord figure for a lot of these things. Like, I want to see the Omegazords. I think they did like a hybrid Omega formation, if I remember right, at the end of Necessary Evil, and I'd love to see this. I think it looks really good, and I think, like, this issue was great without that, but that was, like, a really nice moment, and I think it's really nice to have a big moment like that within a battle of such a big war storyline. So, yeah. Overall, really good issue. I would give this issue a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really strong. Some great action with a really cool Megazord combination. Some great stuff with Zed and Zordon. And then also the great stuff with the Imperials being free. I think that really opens things up nicely into something I really wanted to see. But what did you guys think of the issue? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.